attachment styles. I'm going to talk about the anxious attachment style and some things you can do if you are this style to make your life a bit better. First of all, my name is Julie Melillo. I'm a life coach here in Manhattan. My website is yourdreamslifecoach.com, but this is more of a therapy topic. So, as a coach, I can help you with the actions in your life in the present moment looking forward, but if you're really needing to heal your childhood pain, you would go back to therapy. I describe it like I'm like the personal trainer, and the therapist, they're like the doctor or the surgeon. They're going to go deep inside and find what's in there and actually heal it, right? Personal trainer will get you the six pack. So that's the part that I play in it. Okay, I'm just going to talk about the anxious attachment style right now. I might make videos on the other ones in the future. I have a separate video to help you figure out which of the four types you are. There's anxious, which is a little bit clingy. There's avoidant. Avoidant pushes people away. There is secure, that is just healthy, comfortable with closeness, comfortable with independence, but very closely bonded to their partner. And then there is a fourth one that's a combination of the anxious and the avoidant. So they kind of vacillate randomly between being clingy and then pushing the person away. So I'm going to talk about the anxious type right now, which is the one that tends to be clingy, but it's complicated. So the anxious type they know that they're clingy, and they don't want people to know that. They don't want to be rejected for that. So the anxious type, and by the way, I learned about all this stuff with the book Attached. There's a book called Attached. It's a great book. So I do suggest that, if you're just starting to learn about this, or you could go to a therapist and have them explain it. I'm not a therapist. Sorry, my chair is so squeaky. I'm not a therapist, so I can't help you with that. So the anxious, let's say you're dating and you just start texting somebody. The anxious will sit there and be like, okay, they texted me. All right, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait a certain amount of time so that I don't seem clingy. I'm going to seem really independent and really like I don't care, but I'm going to be watching. Anxious will just sit there and watch and be like, did they text me back? Did they text me back? Did they text me back? Now, don't confuse this for narcissism, because narcissists will do that too. Borderlines will do that too, and that's a totally separate topic I'm not going to get into. That's a therapy topic, especially borderline. I do have some other videos on narcissism, but I'm not going to diagnose anybody because I'm not a therapist. You have to go to therapy to have yourself diagnosed for that. But anxious will sit there and they will be very anxious. The term anxious describes it very well. So they're constantly very aware. They're watching that partner. What are they doing? Are they accepting me? Are they rejecting me? What are they doing? Where do I stand? And so anxious are basically on a roller coaster all the time, where when they haven't gotten that text back, they'll feel like, oh no, I'm the worst person ever. This is terrible. They must hate me. I must have said something wrong, or they must have realized that I'm horrible in every way. And then when they get that text, they're like, oh, this is amazing. We're meant to be. Everything's going to work out perfect. I was wrong. They don't hate me. And so they're on this roller coaster, right? They're kind of taking everything more seriously than it needs to be. So this plays out in a few different ways for the anxious person, which can be a guy, a girl, anything. It's not a gender thing at all. This is actually, you can see my other video on why you become anxious. It's actually how you're treated as a baby. So this is not something you choose. It is something you can change. It's one of the few things that they have research on that you can definitely change, which is cool, and that's why I'm talking about it. So the anxious will be obsessive. And it's they're that kid who's watching their parent Is the parent still there? Are they still there? Are they still there? Do they walk away? Are they still there? Are they still there? And so they can't really focus on anything else because they're so anxious about if the person's there. Now, when they have the parent there or the person they're dating is giving them attention, they feel pretty calm, and then they can be themselves and they can do, they can play on their own as a kid, or they can focus on whatever is in their life as an adult. But the minute that that parent like leaves the room, or isn't available, or the person hasn't texted you back, they go into an anxious state where they just are like, oh no, the world is ending. Okay. Now, again, if you're anxious, it's not your fault. This is how, as a baby, you were treated this way, and your brain does this. So as a baby, you then try to like get your parents' attention to make sure that you have that connection. So anxious really want that connection, but they're like always chasing it. So that's an anxious way to be, and it's a roller coaster. So the ways that this plays out with an anxious is usually they try so hard to control themselves. They try so hard to be like, okay, I'm not going to show them how anxious I am. I'm not going to text back because I know that's annoying. So they try so hard to control themselves. But then at some point they explode because they've been going a long time without attention, without what they need, pretending that it's fine. And then at some point, and especially because anxious tend to date avoidants who don't give them attention and completely ignore them. So it's like their worst fear is happening. They don't date people who are just totally healthy and willing to give them that attention. So they almost feel more comfortable with an avoidant who is blowing them off, who's pushing them away. They will chase, 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 and wait. And oh, if I just wait long enough, it'll work out. But it doesn't work that way, right? The avoidant continues to push them away. They continue to chase them. And the reason behind this is the anxious is so clingy and so pursuing, but underneath it, they're actually afraid of being too close to that person. They don't want to be overwhelmed. They actually like some distance there. They feel more comfortable with not being too intimate, even though they think that's what they want. That's really why they go for these people that are not paying attention to them, because they're afraid of being like overwhelmed and losing themselves. Now the avoidant, their motivation is that the avoidant is afraid of being abandoned. So they actually have opposite motivations, which is so interesting. So the avoidant is afraid of being abandoned. So they like the fact that the anxious is always chasing them because it gives them this reassurance that that person is right there, they're waiting, and they can just keep pushing them away without having the fear that that person is going to get fed up and leave. Because anxious being how they are, they won't. They will just keep anxiously pursuing that person. So as I said, that can play out in a few ways. The anxious person can be sort of playing hard to get, like playing games, acting like they don't care when they do, or they can be just extremely clingy, and they can, the attached book calls it protest behavior, when they basically freak out and they're like, you're not paying attention to me, how dare you, you didn't text me back for this amount of time, and how dare you, blah, blah. And what happens when that anger builds up is that obviously pushes people away. Nobody wants to hear that. No one wants to be yelled at. So then they feel terrible, and then they feel like, oh no, I've ruined my relationship. I really am so horrible. And they're on this constant roller coaster, again, choosing these avoidants who are pushing them away, and then they're running after. And it never really resolves. They never get close enough to that avoidant to feel comfortable. They never really feel like they feel secure with it. They're always chasing. And just when they feel like, oh, he or she gave me these signs that it is going to work out, then they get pushed away again. So with the avoidant and the anxious, Every time the anxious moves forward, the avoidant will move back. And then if the anxious is like, you know what, forget this, like, I don't want to chase you, then the avoidant will move in. Oh, I got you flowers though. Oh, so maybe we can get close. Actually, I have plans this weekend. That's how that works with the anxious and the avoidant. So it's a constant thing. So what the anxious really has to do is to rebuild their self-esteem. And that's a therapy thing, not a coaching thing. They have to deal with their feelings that they're not good enough, because they are. Everyone's good enough. We're all human. There's not a terrible secret about you. There's really not. But they call that toxic shame, and a lot of people do feel that toxic shame, which is a therapy thing. So go ask your therapist what that term means. I don't suggest like researching that yourself, in fact, because a lot of people do better in therapy when that's like the surgery, right? You probably don't want to do surgery on yourself. Therapy can help you with that, because this stuff can be like deep. But that said, actions that you can take in the present moment, because like as a life coach, that's what I am focused on. As an anxious, don't play games. And this is what the attached book also says. That's their advice in the attached book, don't play games, which means let people know, and this is so scary and hard for anxious. So hard for them to be honest with people, because they usually do play games. But let people know what you want. Let people know that you want closeness, if you really do. And if you really don't, then again, therapy, and you need to deal with that. Sometimes people push people away because they're afraid to really be known, because they're like, what if I'm a monster and I'm a terrible person? I don't want that person to find out, so they push people away. Therapy is you deal with that there. But in the moment, actions you can take, let people know up front that you like XYZ. You like talking on the phone once a day. You like texting a few times during the day. Or, whatever it is for you, right? Everyone's different. Maybe you like to see them 2-3 days a week. Maybe you want to see them every day. You kind of have to decide what you want. And this is the thing. You don't give them an ultimatum. You don't try to force them into that. You look for someone who wants to do that. That's the key. You don't demand it, because anxious often get very demanding with these people. They'll like wait for it to get for their anger to build, and then they kind of blow up. It's so much better up front. See how this person is. Okay, so securely attached are the best match for helping the anxious person to grow. The securely attached will be very responsive. Like, they will respond to your text. They also won't put up with you badgering them, with you manipulating them, with you attacking them and saying, how dare you didn't text me back. They'll just be like, whoa, no, we're not doing this. But they're also like nice and kind and have empathy and all that. But they're not a doormat. They have strong boundaries. They're responsive, but they're not going to just be like dropping everything either. They'll be like, what's up? Is this something you need right away? Oh, you want to talk about the relationship. Okay, how about we get together tonight at like 7? So for an anxious, that's really reassuring, because even if they're busy at the moment, you know that they responded, you know they care, and you know that they're willing to talk it through, even if it's not right at that moment. And it's, that's healthy. So you have to ask for what you want instead of just assuming that they magically know. And this isn't a girl thing. Guys do this too. Anxious guys will be like, you should have known that I really know. They'll do the same stuff. Be open with your feelings. Be open with what you want. Also be prepared that they might not want to give you what you want in many areas. So you have to decide, if that doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you, right? That's not going to be the right person for you. If they, if you want this partner that you talk to every day and they're like, I only want to talk to somebody twice a week, I'm not willing to do more than that, then you're going to be like, can I be happy with that? And if you can't, you don't have to be mean or rude, but you can just be like, we're on different pages, This isn't how I picture my relationship, the relationship that I want. And that other person is going to find someone who likes that, who does the same thing, right? So that they both aren't all that close. Maybe they talk once, twice a week, but they never really have that real intimacy, that real strong bond that that securely attached. They're capable of that strong bond, and so anxious are too. Anxious are capable of that strong bond, but they need someone who can be reliable, basically. So the key is to not play games, not make threats, no manipulation, no ultimatums. Chill, okay? So, like, as an anxious, you just need to chill. Stop attacking yourself. Stop assuming that the problem is that they hate you. Instead of seeing everything as the worst case, try to step back and be like, you know what? Even if it is the worst case, that's okay. Even if they think you're horrible and they want to dump you, they're not the right person. If so, that doesn't mean you're actually horrible, but you can be incompatible and still both be great people. That's something that people forget. Now, avoidance will often play on that fear that anxious have, and they will actually like shame you to keep you from getting too close. So it's like, oh, you're a terrible person. You're trying to get too close to me. You're being clingy. You're being overly sensitive. And that's a way they push you away. So you also have to not put up with that. Don't put up with that BS. If someone treats you that way, you don't continue the relationship. Okay? I mean, that's just as simple. You have to take responsibility if you're playing these games back and forth. I mean, you can tell them that's not going to work for me and see if they're willing to change that behavior. But most of the time, when people are shaming you, that's just their pattern and they're going to keep doing it. So that's the thing. You have to stop dating avoidance, stop idealizing avoidance that are pushing you away, stop being angry at avoidance. Because it does make anxious angry because avoidance, it's like nothing bothers them. They're in their own world, they're pushing you away, they're getting what they want because you're right there waiting. But then the anxious isn't getting what you want because you're getting pushed away. So instead, scrap that, work on yourself, go to therapy, make sure your self-esteem is doing well. Make sure you have boundaries, that you won't tolerate being pushed away, being manipulated, having games played. Make sure that you're not playing games yourself by pretending to be cool with stuff you're not cool with. And from the start, if you see signs of this, get out of there. Don't just keep hoping that it's going to magically work. If it's incompatible, it's incompatible. It's up to you to not chase something that's incompatible. Easier said than done, but it's true. And as you heal yourself, you'll notice you're not really drawn to those avoidance. You don't like the chase anymore. In fact, it just sounds boring and annoying because instead of trying to prove to this avoidant that, no, I'm good enough, come back. Instead, you're like, I know I'm good enough, I don't care. Do your thing, find someone else that will chase you. I don't want to chase you. I want someone who can like sit here with me and have a real actual relationship, and I don't have to, play games, and that's not real. That's all just like a facade. So then you find you're secure, and that's the person who texts you back right away. They have strong boundaries, they have strong empathy, they care about the well-being of other people as much as their own, but they're also not gonna sacrifice their plans, their commitments. They have very high integrity. So they'll be there for you, but they're also not going to be like, okay, I'm going to cancel all my plans and lie and call my boss and say I'm sick when I'm not so that I can help you. They wouldn't do that. They will stick to their commitment, but they'll make sure that you feel cared about. So if they're busy at work and you're like, oh, I'm having a bad day, I'm sad, I'm depressed, they'll be like, look, I'm really busy at work. Can I call you on my lunch break? And is this like an emergency? Because if it's not, let's talk on my lunch break. Or, why don't we have a special date tonight? and you can tell me all about it, right? So they're still having their strong boundaries. They're not going to break their commitment unless it's like an emergency, like you're in the hospital or something like that. Then they would, but usually they wouldn't, if it's just like an ordinary thing. But they care about your feelings, and they're flexible, and they're problem solving focused. So whereas all three of the other types are more focused on like game playing games, and what does this person think of me, the secure is focused on problem solving, making sure they care about the other person's feelings, but caring about their own feelings too, being very, very close, but also having their sense of self. So they don't lose a sense of self when they have a close relationship, which is why they're not afraid of it. The other three types can kind of lose themselves in this game playing and in this, it's almost like a quest to get self-esteem from somebody else, okay? So if you're doing that and you're so dependent on how that person sees you, then that person has a lot of power over you. If they don't text you back, you feel terrible. But if you're getting your self-esteem from yourself, which is where it's supposed to come from, self-esteem, not other esteem, and you can be totally alone for like a month and a half and still feel happy and still feel good about yourself, that's self-esteem. That's coming from within you. It means you don't hate yourself, you don't shame yourself, you don't beat yourself up. You also don't give yourself a free pass. You take responsibility. You don't make up stories that you're the best or the worst, or you're better, you're superior. You don't do any of that. And yes, a lot of these are narcissist qualities, right? You don't have to be a narcissist to be one of these three unhealthy attachment styles. But narcissists are almost always one of the unhealthy styles. So there's overlap there, okay? But you're not a narcissist just because you're an anxious or avoidant or the other unhealthy category. But if you are a narcissist, you're not a secure. They just don't go together. So if you found a secure, unless I haven't seen, there might be research I've missed, but I've never seen any research of a secure who was a narcissist. It's possible, I guess, but I personally haven't seen it. So then you're getting your self-esteem from yourself. You're not dependent on like, oh no, they did this, now my life has come crashing down because they didn't text me back. Okay, because you can't live in a calm way like that, right? The stakes are just too high. You're on this roller coaster all the time where you're feeling like the best or the worst depending on, oh, they didn't text me back, it's all horrible, or, oh, they texted me back, I'm on the top of the world. There's nothing in the middle. In the middle is where you should be living most of the time. So then if it doesn't work out, it's really not the end of the world because they're just doing them. You do you, they do them. Focus on your own life and know that their choices really don't have that much to do with you. They want a compatible partner, right? And if you're not compatible, it's not going to work out. It's nothing against you. It's nothing against them. It's just not compatible. So like that's the thing to get. So anxious, the thing that I would suggest like to do as far as action is get really clear on like what you're telling yourself. And when you're on the roller coaster, it's because you're thinking things and you can't just immediately turn that stuff off. It's like ingrained in you. But you can become aware of it, even if you can't change it yet. You can be like, okay, they didn't text me, so I'm feeling like, oh no, I must suck because they didn't text me. Just get aware of that feeling. And as you're doing your work in therapy and everything, those things will start to change. It takes a long time. It can take a year, 2 years to fully change this kind of thing, but it is possible if you go to therapy and keep up with it. You stay aware of how you're feeling, and if you accept that other people don't have to do what you want. They don't have to like you. They don't have to text you back. Okay? They don't have to do anything. But if you don't like how you're being treated, it's on you to realize you're not compatible and to end it without lashing out, without being like, how dare you. That's what you do when you're getting your self-esteem from someone else, and then you're resentful that they didn't give it to you. um, you need to own yourself, right? So if it, they're not giving you the kind of relationship you want, they're not in contact, they take days to get back to you, well, that's not what you want. So, hey, thanks so much, but I noticed that we just aren't compatible. I'm not happy like that, and so I'm going to look for someone that it works better with, and, I'm sure you can find someone that is cool with that kind of lifestyle too. Simple as that, right? It doesn't have to be this angry, negative thing. Um, and that's the thing. Even if you're talking to someone online or you just met someone and, you started texting, you're going to see this stuff right away. Now, sometimes people do these games that they've read about. There's a lot of really bad dating advice out there. Like, oh, always wait 3 days. No, don't do that because you're going to repel the most emotionally healthy people. But just make sure your actions are coming from a strong, secure place and not from an insecure place. So ask yourself before you do something, is that because you're trying to feel better about yourself and you're mad that they didn't prop your self-esteem up? If so, that's probably not the best way to do things. But if it's coming from a strong, secure place, then you can't really go wrong. You're not going to push someone away who's healthy and capable of a good relationship if you are being healthy yourself. It's okay to ask for what you want. It's okay to be clear about, I'm the kind of person that I like XYZ. What do you like in a relationship? And just see if it matches or not, because it might not match. And don't take that personally. That's just how you do things. You do things differently. So anyway, it is possible to improve it a lot. And you probably will not be as drawn to avoidance when you do improve it, because when someone actually cares about your well-being, you don't have to chase it. You can put all that energy into just living your life and doing your hobbies and enjoying yourself. You don't have to obsess about, oh, did they text me back? Because this person will, even if they're not always responsive, you will know that they care because they're secure, and they will get back to you, as fast as they can in their situation. You always get the feeling that they have an open door kind of thing, is what you feel like. And they might be on the phone, but you can still kind of wave through the window, and they're like, okay, I see you. Oh, just 1 second. I have a phone call, right? You have that feeling of connection, even if they're busy. It's not just like a solid door you can't see through, and you're like, I don't know what's going on. That's like an avoidant and an anxious. It's like that solid door. An anxious and a secure is like that glass door that you can see through. They're not going to, hang up the phone, because that's not really healthy, because they need to do what they're doing too, right? That's the independence part. But you feel cared about even if they're doing the independent stuff. And that's really all anxious need. I've had clients over time as a life coach that are anxious, and known people as well. And I find that all they want is to know that that they exist and you're going to get back to them. Okay? That's really all. They don't need a lot. They don't need what a narcissist would need. A narcissist would need you to drop everything and just do whatever they want. A narcissist would need you to give up your own life. But an anxious doesn't need that. They just need to know that you care and that you exist and that you know that they exist. And that's pretty much it, An anxious will be more than happy if you text them and you're like, hey, sorry I'm busy. Can we catch up at 4:30? Give me a call at 4:30. Or, I'm at this family reunion all day. I don't think I'm going to have time for a full phone call. Well, hey, tomorrow morning you want to do brunch? Or, why don't you give me a call tomorrow morning when you wake up and tell me about your day yesterday or whatever, you know? So you kind of always have that sense that they're there even if they're busy. They're thinking of you. They care how things are going. And they haven't shut you out, you know, they're just doing their thing right then. Whereas an avoidant will like not answer your text, not let you know what's going on. You'll really feel like, oh my gosh, are they even okay? Which is actually stressful even for a secure. When a secure dates an anxious, I'm sorry, when a secure dates an avoidant, it can actually make the secure into an anxious because it makes everybody anxious. If you don't hear from someone for 3 days or a week, you know, you start feeling like, did they get into an accident or should I call the hospitals? Are they okay? Like, it's not like something people are really comfortable with unless they're one of the other three unhealthy types. Now, it's important to understand that like tons of people in the population are in these three unhealthy types. I would say it's almost more common to be an unhealthy type than a healthy, which is why you see so many dating advice things about playing games, pretending you don't care, putting them down. I don't condone any of that. It doesn't work, you know? You don't need to do that. You can be nice, and that's not going to repel people to be nice. It repels people when you're playing the games and you're manipulating and you're putting people down and you're pushing people away or you're chasing them and being clingy. It's all coming from insecurity. All that stuff, it's repulsive because it's coming from insecurity. And it's basically saying this other person has to make me feel okay or else it's their fault if I don't feel okay. That's too much pressure to put on somebody. And it's the core of the problem with it is its manipulation. And when you manipulate, you're stealing. Healthy relationships are about freely giving. You make a choice. If I choose to give you all the apples on my apple tree because I have extra apples, and I'm going to give you extra apples because I have extra and I want to give them to you. I'm going to feel great about it. You're going to feel great about it. If you go and steal those apples and then you're like, oh, I didn't steal those. Those must have fallen to the ground and maybe a rabbit ate them or something. Wasn't me. You see the difference? It just gives you a feeling of ick. That person's a thief. That's not right. That's manipulation. And that's at the heart of why it's repulsive to be clingy or to push people away. It's repulsive because it's coming from a place of stealing, a place of manipulation. You're stealing your self-esteem from somebody else. That's the heart of why it doesn't work. Well, it actually does work between two people that are unhealthy, by the way. It more or less works because healthy people are not compatible with manipulation. They will not put up with it. But other unhealthy people, they will manipulate back and forth. And I guess you could argue in a way it's not hurting anyone if they're both stealing from each other's trees in kind of an equal amount, and that's just how they do things. That's your compatibility for an unhealthy relationship. But if you are a healthy person, it's not fair if someone's stealing from you, and it's not going to make you feel better to steal from them back because then it's like double ick feeling. Ugh, they stole from me. Ugh, I stole from them. That doesn't feel good. If you're healthy, if you're unhealthy, that actually does feel good. And they feel like they're winning. But I have other videos on that, like narcissism and all that. So yeah, that's basically it, is basically be yourself, heal yourself with therapy, get to the point where you're comfortable knowing what you need to be happy in a relationship, and then don't force someone to be that. Find someone who already is that. Look at their behavior, and that's how you know. You know, if they respond to you real quick and they're open and they're, you know, not pushing away, not being clingy, they're just like letting you know openly what's going on, that's the healthiest way to be. And you know, you can change your attachment style. The Attached book is a great resource. You can go to therapy. And as I said, your actions in the moment, looking at your behavior, looking at your feelings, like, why am I doing this? Why am I waiting to text this person? Why am I pretending I'm okay with, them blowing me off for a week? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool, that's fun. When I'm not fine with it, all right? Look at your behavior, own that, and then be realistic about, is this other person at heart someone who wants what you want? Do they want to be in contact every day? If they don't, let them be them and end that and look for the person who naturally wants that. Because there's all different kinds of relationships. There are couples that barely speak. They might talk 3 hours a month total. They might almost never see each other, and they both say they're happy because they're both the same in that way. There are couples that are together every minute of every day. And whether this is healthy or not, compatibility wise, that works, right? So you have to figure out what relationship you want. How much time do you want together? How much contact do you want? How much time do you want away? And if you can get to the secure category, then you're going to be able to kind of effortlessly switch between those two, between being really close and comfortable with them, and also being close with yourself and comfortable with yourself when you're doing separate stuff. So you can focus on doing your hobbies and interests and work and, hanging out with your friends and growing as a person separately, but you're also maintaining that closeness even when you're apart, which is something that avoidants don't do. Avoidants are amazing about growing on their own, but they can't maintain the closeness. They shut that person out. Like, I'm at my pottery class, don't you dare bother me. How dare you text me, I was at pottery class. That's an avoidant. And anxious is like, why didn't you text me? I know you're at pottery class, but like, I texted you 10 times. Why didn't you reply? And a secure is like, hey babe, I'm at pottery class, hope things are cool. And like, you can text them if you need to, but so as an anxious, you almost feel like you don't need to text them because, oh, they're at pottery class. Okay, I know where I stand, things are cool. Oh, all right, well, you know what? I'm going to read this book. Oh, I forgot how much I love this book. And then you get into reading your book and you forget to even obsess. You don't need to obsess because you know where you stand. And then over time, you forget to even care about this. Not about them, but you forget to like be anxious or wonder because you know where you stand. You know that if you really need to get in touch with them, you can. And they're having fun at class, and that's awesome. You want them to have fun at class. And you want to read this book because you forgot how much you love this book, And like, whenever you're both done, you want to tell them all about this book, and they want to tell you about pottery class. That's how it can be. It can be that healthy. So I just wanted to give you guys some tips on that because I know I had that other video from years ago about the attachment styles, and then I realized, I haven't really talked about like what can you do to improve it. So I might do another on the avoidant category. I'm not going to do one on the combo of anxious and avoidant because that's basically just a combo of this, the anxious, and then and mixed in with the avoidant one. So if people have that, you can just kind of patchwork the tips from those two videos. But really, that one needs therapy like the most because that one, the anxious and the avoidant, at least they have a pattern. It's like always clinging or always pushing away. Whereas that third category is randomly pushing away or being clingy, and it's just like very random. So they say for that one, therapy is really needed because you have to at least get into one category or another for it to be easier to fix. So anyway, I hope that was helpful to any of my anxious people out there who are anxious sometimes, wondering where you stand with people. And if you do want coaching for the coaching aspect, which is like not the therapy part, but looking at like, you're here, where do you want to be in the future? what can you do right now to get there? What can you do this week? What actions can you take? That's how the coaching process works, plus asking you questions to help pull out the info that we need. You can go to my website for rates, yourdreamslifecoach.com, and fill out the contact form. And let me know your situation and what you're hoping to achieve. If it seems like that will probably be compatible, I will send you rates, and then we'll talk more to like make sure it is the type of coaching that I do, because I have my own type of coaching. Every coach is a little bit different, and of course we have to make sure it's like compatible so that you get help with what you want. So thanks for watching, guys, and have a great day.